Everybody knows heartbreak, isolation. Ooh, ooh, but we can lay our burdens down. Lay our burdens down. What a friend we have in Jesus. East to west, my sins are gone. I see grace on every horizon. Forever and ever, His heart is my home. Everybody has fears. Everybody got worries. Ooh, ooh. Everybody sorrow, devastation. Ooh, ooh. But we can lay our burdens down. Lay our burdens down. What a friend we have in Jesus. East to west, my sins are gone. I see grace on every horizon. Forever and ever, His heart is my home. No more betrayal, for He is faithful. He fills me up and my cup runneth over. No more betrayal, for He is faithful. How He has proven it over and over. No more betrayal, for He is faithful. He fills me up and my cup runneth over. No more betrayal, for He is faithful. How He has proven it over and over, over and over. What a friend we have in Jesus. East to west, my sins are gone. I see grace on every horizon. Forever and ever, His heart is my home. What a friend we have in Jesus. East to west, my sins are gone. I see grace on every horizon. Forever and ever, His heart is my home. Forever and ever, His heart is my home. Amen. Thanks, church.
Well, hey, good morning. Man, it is good to see you guys today. You sound great singing today. It's just fun to be able to be in God's house, to be able to sing praises to Him, be able to celebrate together, hopefully learn some good things together. If you're a guest, if you've never had the opportunity to fill out one of our communication cards, they're in the seat pocket there in front of you. If you want to take a minute sometime during the service and fill that out, if you drop it off at Welcome Central, it's on the right there as you leave in the lobby. We have a gift that we'd like to be able to give to you, okay? You may have noticed when you came in that all the offices have been wiped out over there, been taken out already. So there's still some walls that'll be worked on. If you walk straight in, you may not have noticed, but when you leave, it'll be very easy to see to your left as you leave. But anyway, we're excited about the project already underway. I want to remind you that next Sunday is a really special day in the life of our church. We're trying to raise next Sunday $100,000 because we've already got over $100,000 set aside for this project, and it would mean that we could do the project without having to get any loans at all. And so, man, we've been praying about that. We're excited about it. I will tell you that when all that comes in and gets tabulated, we're not going to tell you the total till the next Sunday. We're going to make it fun and kind of a celebration. And so it's just going to be a really cool experience. So I hope that you'll be a part of that. No, it really, I'm honestly saying this. It's not a pressure thing. We just see it as an investment. You're investing in the church. You're investing in the community. Let me switch gears for a second and give you this to think about before the message today. Then we'll dive back into our worship. Several of us from here yesterday went to Camp Calvary. They had their archery tournament, and we got involved in the bow shooting. That was a lot of fun. And there were a couple of guys with us that don't go to our church, so I'm going to tell you a story about what happened to one of them because you don't know who it is, and I'm not going to embarrass him because he's not here. Okay. This guy shot well. I mean, he really had a good day, but you can miss a target. It can happen. What it is, there's 30 targets. They're in the woods. It might be a turkey. It might be a pheasant. It might be a deer. It might be an elk. There are even a couple of dinosaurs because, we love to dinosaur hunt. So anyway, there's all these scattered targets, and, you shoot. Well, this guy missed a target, and, man, his arrow, those modern bows fling an arrow so fast, he hit the tree and just, kind of... And just as he did that, it's probably a $15, $20 arrow, so he's not real happy about that. This dad is walking by with his maybe 5-year-old son, and the kid says, plenty loud for everybody to hear, well, that's the end of that arrow, he said. It's like, man, it's not bad enough you just shattered a good arrow. You got some kid talking smack, as he walks by. It's like, really? You had to say that. Our words are so powerful, right? I mean, we can heal with our words, or we can wound with our words. And we're going to talk about our speech today, but in a very specific way that Jesus addresses in the Sermon on the Mount. And man, I'm telling you, it is important stuff because it's all about who we are and the kind of integrity we have. So we'll learn about that in just a little bit. All right, let's pray. God, thanks for today. Thank you for the privilege of worship, Lord. Thank you that we can gather here and sing to you and give to you and share with one another. We just love our family here and love him, welcoming and embracing new folks. And we're just excited about what you're up to here in this place. Help us to be wise, Lord, not just in how we speak, but how we live and how we serve. I pray that today, not just our little bit of the church here, but your church around the world, that we would shine your light into the darkness and make a difference for you. And we do all this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Good evening, sir. Would you like to see the menu?
Oh, yes. I'm starving. Really starving. Prices. Whew. I think I'll just have some water.
Water.
Yes.
Only water? But you seem so hungry.
I'm saving my money for something special. My mother.
Your mother?
Well, she's not really my mother, actually. She's my grandmother, but she raised me. My real parents didn't want me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But my grandmother is a wonderful woman. She has a laugh that can make the birds sing. But she's been quite ill lately, and the hospital bills have been adding up. I just want to do my share. It's kind of tough for me because I was never very good with money. I just seem to take whatever the Red Cross pays me and I just give it right back to them. But I am going to help my Gram. She is the one who taught me it is better to be truthful and good than to not.
Waiter?
What are you doing?
Waiter?
Madam?
Give this man whatever he wants.
Oh, I can't let you buy me a meal.
Nonsense.
I'll have a double turkey sandwich on white, a side order of fries, one of those large knockwares, 3 bags of potato chips, a chocolate milk, and 2 beers. Why don't you have a beer? 3 beers. Thank you.
You remember what Billy Joel sang? Honesty is such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue. Honesty is hardly ever heard, but mostly what I need from you. Paul Harvey once said this about golf. He said that golf is a game where a person hollers 4, he shoots 6, and he writes down 5 on his scorecard. I heard Paul Harvey tell a story one time on his daily news report, true story, about the Stuttgart golf club in Germany. There were these four guys playing. They were shooting up onto an elevated green, and one of them was convinced that he hit the ball too far, that it had gone over the green. So all four of them were kind of looking around behind the green on the slope there in the thick grass, seeing if they can find his ball. He goes back up onto the green, reaches in his pocket, takes out a ball and drops it there. He says, "Oh, I found it." So everybody came up onto the green to putt. They pulled the flag out of the cup there, and his ball was in the cup. He'd gotten a hole-in-one, but he ruined it because he told a lie. In fact, Paul Harvey went on to say that that man was no longer a member of the club. He was kicked out for lying, and at that time, he had been the president of the club. I want to ask you a question. I want you to really think about this question and just kind of mull it over in your mind. Are you an honest person? Seriously. Not just in the big things, but in the little day-to-day things. Do you tell the truth on the golf course or on the dinner train, even when it's not to your advantage, even when maybe it's decidedly to your disadvantage? As we've been seeing all through this series, Jesus taught in the Sermon on the Mount about laws and commands from the Old Testament that everybody had heard all their lives. But then he would raise the bar and he would challenge them to go beyond law abiding on the outside to being Christ-like on the inside. He does that again today. He wants us to go beyond being truthful to being trustworthy. And he does it by talking about having a reputation for honesty. Let me show you what he says, and then we'll dig a little deeper. Matthew 5, beginning in verse 33. "Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, 'Do not break your oath, but keep the oaths you have made to the Lord.' But I tell you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. Simply let your yes be yes, and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one." Now, this is an interesting passage, but it takes a little bit of digging to really understand what Jesus means. He says, do not swear an oath. Witnesses do it in court all the time. Immigrants swear an oath of allegiance when they become citizens of America. Soldiers, police officers, they swear an oath when they go into active duty. The incoming president swears an oath every 4 years at the inauguration. Presumably, he's telling the truth then, whether he tells the truth the other 4 years or not. This is a passage that has much to do about our integrity, our character, our nature. I'm not convinced that it has anything to do with those official, ceremonial, authorized kind of pledges of honesty or of allegiance. This is about how people view us, whether or not they're able to take our word at face value. When we speak, can people trust what we say? Do we have a reputation for honesty? Next month, on September 17th, Gail's brother-in-law, Dale Holzbauer, is going to be here at Nelson Christian Church. He's going to preach for us that day. I'm really excited about it. Dale is an amazing communicator. He's a really fascinating guy, and he certainly has loads of integrity. But something about Dale is that he is the ultimate preacher joke teller, the ultimate dad joke teller. When we're just in casual conversation sitting around, he starts a story as if it happened to him, and then by the punchline, you know that he's just telling a corny joke. In fact, I told him one time, unless he's reading from the Bible, I don't believe anything that he says until he gets to the end of the story. I don't think this is what Jesus is talking about humor or about a bad attempt at humor. That's not a violation of the point that Jesus makes about honesty. 3 weeks ago, I baptized Aaliyah and Andrea Young. They texted me that week. They said they wanted to get baptized and they wanted to surprise their mom. Man, I was so excited. I knew that we were going to blow her mind that morning during the service. But they needed an excuse for why they were not in the sanctuary when the service got started. They didn't want her to get suspicious. I told them, well, we got new baptism t-shirts in. We give those to everybody who gets baptized. And that was true. We really did get new baptism shirts in. Then I said, tell your mom that that I asked you to come back and help me fold those and get them put away, which was not true. It's the only time I've ever lied about a baptism. Okay, I promise. It's my only time. And so that's what they did. They told her that. And so they were not in the sanctuary during the opening song. Then they stepped down into the baptistry. It was such a beautiful thing. We were all misty-eyed. It was awesome. You may have lost all respect for me because of that. I think God liked it. I think he thought it was great. Gail and I have a rule that we are allowed to lie about presents. Around Christmas time, there's fibbing going on all over the place because it kind of sets up the fun of the big reveal on Christmas Day. Speaking of Christmas, do you remember in Christmas Vacation where Clark Griswold is around the table with everybody on Christmas Eve, and he says, hey kids, I heard on the news tonight that Santa's sleigh has been spotted over by the airport. And Cousin Eddie says, are you serious, Clark? All right? But what was he asking? He was saying, are you telling the truth right now? Man, that news is so exciting. Maybe it's too good to be true. Clark, did that really happen? Are you being authentic right now? Sometimes when people are trying to convince somebody else that they're telling the truth, they'll say things like, oh, I swear to you. That's really how it happened. I swear to God, sometimes they'll say. It happened exactly this way. Bring in a Bible. Give me a stack of Bibles. I'll put my hand on it. I'm telling you the truth. Sometimes, have you ever noticed the harder people work to convince you that they're telling the truth, the harder a time you have believing that they're telling the truth? It all depends on the person, the type of person that they are. But sometimes if they're working too hard, I'm not sure about that. When I was a kid, we were not allowed to say, I swear, because of these verses in Matthew 5. In fact, we never said, I swear to God, because that not only broke this command of Jesus in Matthew 5, it broke the third of the 10 commandments about not misusing God's name. We only use God's name in a respectful way, not an oath, not a curse. But to understand what Jesus is getting at here, we need to understand what was going on in the first century back when Jesus first said this. Sometimes back then, kind of like today, people would declare an oath to sound truthful or to sound more believable. And the Old Testament law, the law of Moses, said that it was wrong to make an irreverent oath, one that you don't really mean. It's wrong to break a vow that you have made. Only the religious leaders of Jesus' day had worked out all these rules that were not in the Bible, they were not from God, and they were about which oaths that you make are binding and which ones are just kind of casual conversation. And so, according to their rules, if God's name was attached to the oath, then it was binding. If you simply swore by heaven or you swore by earth, it was not binding. If you swore by Jerusalem, it was not binding, but if you swore toward Jerusalem, it was binding. In fact, in the original Greek that the New Testament was written in, Jesus called them out here for this specific thing. The New International Version of the Bible that we're reading from kind of simplified things a little bit, and they have Jesus saying that don't swear by Jerusalem. But Jesus actually specifically said, don't swear toward Jerusalem. It was like he was nudging them, poking them, saying, oh yeah, I know all the little games you're playing here with the truth. The religious leaders had all these verbal gymnastics to allow themselves to sound truthful, but to actually lead people astray. Maybe they're trying to protect their own good name. I read a story years ago about the old days of the railroad. Jeff, you'll appreciate this with your railroad experience. A man would be stationed at a busy railroad crossing. He was to hold a lantern to stop traffic in a town when a train was coming through. And a serious accident took place at this specific intersection one night, and the man was summoned to appear in court, the lantern guy. All right, the attorney asked him, were you on duty the night of the accident? He said, yes, sir, I was. Did you take your place at the crossing when you heard the train approaching? He said, yes, sir, I did. Did you wave the lantern to stop the oncoming traffic? He said, yes, sir, I waved that lantern with all my might. And the attorney said, thank you, no further questions. Later on that afternoon, the guy was talking to one of his buddies. He said, man, I thought I was in big trouble for a minute there, but thankfully, the lawyer never got around to asking me if my lantern was lit. Now, was that guy honest, even though he technically did not tell a lie? Was he truthful in court about what actually happened, even though he did not technically commit perjury? When Jesus talked about swearing an oath, certainly part of it was not giving false testimony and about the importance of being truthful in that way, about not lying under oath in a courtroom. But Jesus would say that it's wrong to lie whether you're under oath or not. Again, it's kind of like a boss who was asked by a lazy employee who had left the company and he was applying for another job somewhere else. He asked the boss to fill out a reference form for him. And the employer was a nice guy. He really did not want to be too harsh. So he said this, if you can get John Smith to work for you, you will be fortunate indeed. If you can get him to work, you'll be fortunate. He wrote at the end of the form, when John has worked for you as long as he worked for me, I'm sure you'll come to feel about him exactly the same way I do. Now, did he lie? Was he deceitful? Sure he was, right? No specific lies were spoken, but deception occurred. Look, Jesus doesn't want us to just be truthful in the strictest sense of the word. You know, where you kind of dance around the truth, right? He raised the bar, and he told us to go beyond truthful to trustworthy. In the 10 Commandments, what did God say? You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. In Proverbs 12:22, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in those who are truthful. Ephesians 4:25, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to his neighbor. Colossians 3:9, do not lie to each other, since you've taken off your old self with its practices. And then again in Proverbs 6, it says in verse 16, there are 7 things that God hates. And 2 of the 7 things are a lying tongue and a false witness. Everything from, that dress looks great on you, to the dog ate my homework, to I have to work late, the check is in the mail, I love what you've done with your hair, I got to go, I've got a call on the other line. Oh, that engine was just rebuilt. I can't come in today, I've got the COVID. Sorry, he's in a meeting. We can still be friends. Look, if you're selling a car and you know something's wrong with the car and you don't reveal it, even though or because they did not ask about it, it's being deceitful. If you have a phone call come in from that least favorite client of yours, you tell your assistant to say that you're not in the office, and then just to make it legitimate, you step outside into the hall, you're being deceitful. Technicalities might hold up in court, but they don't hold up so well in front of Jesus. He wants us to be people of integrity. Now, sometimes we convince ourselves that we aren't really lying, we're just exaggerating. Were there really that many people at church, or was that just a preacher count? Did you really run 5 miles, or was it more like 3.5? That fish weighed how much? Your granddaughter scored what on her SAT? I mean, come on, if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times to stop exaggerating, right? It's like Charlie Brown, who never won a baseball game his entire life. Linus was helping him fill out a resume to be a pitcher for another team. And when Charlie Brown said that he had never won a single game, Linus wrote down perfect record. Are you a person of integrity? Sometimes flattery is lying. Maybe we mean well. We want to boost somebody's self-esteem. Or maybe we're trying to butter them up because we want them to do something for us. Maybe we want to spare their feelings so we don't let them know what we really think. But flattery can also be self-serving. Years ago, a drug rep came into the doctor's office where my wife Gail was working, and he wanted to get past the front desk so that he could see the doctor. So he said to her, "Hey, you look great. Have you lost some weight?" And she said that would have been great, except she was about 7 months pregnant. It's like, come on. Listen again to what Jesus said. After he commanded them not to swear or make oaths, he concluded verse 37 by saying, "Simply let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one." Here's what I think Jesus was saying. This is important. Listen. If you're the kind of person who needs to swear an oath to get other people to believe you, if your yes or your no aren't good enough for people, maybe you're not really a trustworthy person. People who know you well should know that they can count on what you're saying, whether it's yes or no. Maybe this is why we have to swear an oath in a courtroom, because those people, the judge, the attorneys, they don't know you. They don't know if you're an honest person or not. So you have to make kind of a legally binding oath that you're going to tell the truth. But the people who know you well, the people who know you best, they ought to know that if you make a declaration, you don't have to take an oath because you're just going to be telling the truth. Your yes is yes, your no is no. And if that's not the way it is, there's a problem. Here's my bottom line for today. The people who know us best should believe us the most. The people who know us best should believe us the most. If we have to convince them, we don't stand a chance with anybody else. So I want to just quickly give you some things to think about, just several things to kind of mull over here. Then I'm going to give you a dilemma and let you sort of take that one with you, because it's when the subject gets really tricky. But here's the first reminder. Tell the truth in the little things. Jesus said in another passage, "Whoever can be trusted with little can also be trusted with much. Whoever will be dishonest with little will also be dishonest with much." See, we often act like it's just the opposite. We might play loose with the truth in little things. We say, well, those things just don't really matter that much. But then in the big things, we try to watch our words a little more carefully. We maybe try to be a little more honest. But listen, if we train ourselves to be truthful when the stakes are low, then I believe we're much more likely to be honest and to be dependable and to be trustworthy when the stakes are higher. I had an English teacher in high school, Mr. Lerding, one of my favorite teachers. He made us write on the back of our book reports what percentage of the book we actually read, and then we had to sign our name. And you say, well, that'd be easy to lie about. You're exactly right. It was easy to lie about if that's the kind of person that you were. But he was teaching us that it's important to tell the truth. And you sign your name because there's something about declaring officially, I mean what I say. If you get into a habit of telling the truth, it becomes second nature. If you get into a habit of lying, it becomes second nature. And you better have a good memory if you're a liar, because it's hard to keep up with all the things that you've said. All right, so the little things. A second thing here is to tell the truth even when it's hard. Well, what happens when you don't stand to gain, but maybe you stand to lose? You didn't read the book. You just skimmed a few paragraphs and threw together a book report. And now you got to sign your name to 10% of the book you read instead of 100%. What do you do in that situation? Or your boss holds you accountable for a bad decision that you made. Do you try to pass the blame on to somebody else? Your spouse asks where you've been. Your parents ask what time you came home last night. Your neighbor asks if you ever returned that drill that you borrowed back in 2013. What do you say? In Psalm 15, King David talks about those who may dwell in God's sanctuary, those who may live on his holy hill. And among other things, he says it is those people who speak the truth from their heart and who keep their promise, listen, who keep their promise even when it hurts. Even when it hurts. The one who does those things, David says, will never be shaken. Look, if you only tell the truth when it's easy, you're not a truthful person. Same for me. If we evade the truth, if we twist things around or try to confuse things or cast doubt or lead people astray, we're not trustworthy. This is especially important when we're teaching our kids about honesty. How can we possibly expect them to be honest if we model for them dishonesty? Why are we surprised when they lie to us if they hear us lying to other people? If we live our lives by a double standard, they will always choose the easier of the two. Always. Here's the third thing. Tell the truth without being cruel. If somebody asks your opinion, hey, do you like this outfit? Do you like my dreadlocks? What do you think of my new face tattoo? How'd you feel about the solo I sang in church this morning? Do these stripes make my butt look too big? Sorry, that's from Africa. I took that picture. Everybody that saw it commented on the stripes. And anyway, you get the idea. Okay. Look. You don't have to lie and tell people that you like things you don't like. At the same time, you don't have to say that outfit makes you look ridiculous. Your dreadlocks are filthy and disgusting. You may have done your best on that solo and we appreciate it, but whoever asked you to sing should be shot. Okay, I mean, you don't have to say that kind of stuff. Okay, you can say things like, to be honest, I like this outfit better. I think it's more flattering for you. I love you no matter what your hair looks like, but I got to be honest, I liked your hair shorter better. Hey, that's a great song. I appreciate you singing it. And just stop there. Now, it's true. If people don't want you to be honest in your opinion, they don't have to ask you for your opinion. I get that. But you can still speak the truth and give your opinion in a kind and compassionate way. You don't have to be cruel. And please listen to me. You don't have to say everything that comes into your mind. You really don't. You do not have to speak without a filter in order to be honest with people. Wayne Smith was a pastor in Lexington for decades, just a great guy. He said a man came up to him one time and said, Brother Smith, I just tell it like it is. I just shoot from the hip. If they don't like it, I don't care. And Wayne said, you need to shoot from a little higher up, from the heart. Okay, we can be kind in how we communicate the truth. Now here's one more suggestion. Then I'm going to leave you with a bit of a dilemma. I'm not sure I know the answer to. I'm not sure there is an answer to, but I want you to mull it over a bit. Okay, here's the fourth thing though. Tell the truth now to people maybe you deceived before. And this might be the toughest one of all. If you have lied to somebody and you hurt them, you need to man up. You need to go to them. You need to confess your sin and apologize. Now look, if you lied to somebody and it's been a while and bringing this back up is just going to hurt them, you're going to wound them in ways that's going to be bad for them. I'm not sure that you need to just go puke all over somebody and then they're all wounded and you feel better because you got it off your chest. Maybe before you go, talk to somebody, get some advice, and really pray about what's the best thing. It needs to be the best thing for them, okay? We need to be people of integrity. And the goal is that the people who know us best believe us the most. That's the way it ought to work. Now, before we close out, let me give you a dilemma to think about. Is it ever right to lie? What about in the time of war and you're behind enemy lines? What about lying to protect somebody? What about lying to save somebody's life? There's a story in the Old Testament about two spies from Israel who had been sent to scope out the promised land. And they were being pursued by their enemies, and a woman named Rahab hid them, and then she lied to their pursuers, sent them a different direction, then she helped these spies escape. I don't know how I'm going to do this 3 times today. Now, she was not a follower of God when that happened. There was no expectation that she would behave in a godly way because she was not one of his servants at that time. And yet the New Testament commends her for her actions, and she told a lie. Okay, mull that over. Was it right or wrong? Then, here's a similar dilemma from more modern history. I've told you before about Corrie ten Boom. She wrote the book, The Hiding Place. She and her family were Christians in Holland during World War II, and they hid Jews in their home. They were betrayed. They were caught. They were sent to a concentration camp. And Corrie survived. She went on to speak all over the world, to write books. Just an amazing woman. But her father and her sister both died in the camp. The Hiding Place, great book. I highly recommend it. She was an amazing Christ follower. But according to Corrie, her sister Betsy was almost otherworldly. She walked with God so closely, Corrie said. She was so Christ-like in her behavior. It was almost like she was a visitor from heaven. And as an example, Corrie said that Betsy had made a decision as a young person, just as a girl really, that she would be a person of complete integrity, that she would never tell a lie. And that became an unbreakable principle for her. And one day, Nazi soldiers pounded on their door, demanding to search the house. Corrie's family not only had a hiding place fashioned upstairs, a false wall with a hiding place behind it, there was also a cellar under the kitchen floor, and there was a trap door in the floor. They'd put a little rug over it, they put a table and a couple of chairs there. And when the soldiers were coming, they hid a Jewish family under that trap door, under the floor, table, chairs back in place. These guys come bursting into the house and they demand, "Are there any Jews in this home?" Betsy did not have any time to think. She didn't have any time to process. She really didn't even have any time to pray about what to do. She just responded according to this character trait that was so ingrained in her. And she said, "Yes, they're hiding under the table." And her family, they just were horrified by her honesty. But this German officer assumed that she was being sarcastic, that she was making fun of him. There was obviously nobody under that table. In a rage, he turned and stormed out of the room. They searched every square inch of that house. They never looked under the floor, under the table where that family was hidden. Rahab in the Old Testament saved 2 people because she told a lie. Betsy in Holland during World War II saved a family of people because she told the truth. Which one was right? I don't know. It's messy sometimes knowing what to say. But here's my guess. Most of us are never going to be in a situation where we have to decide in a split second, tell the truth, tell a lie to save a life. I think that's fairly rare. Every one of us, every day, will decide, am I a person of integrity or not? Am I going to tell the truth or not? And I'm telling you, the people who know us best should be able to trust us the most. Let's pray. Well, Father, this hits close to home for all of us because it's human nature sometimes to bend the truth to our own benefit. It's easy for us sometimes to kind of play loose with the truth, especially when we're convinced it doesn't matter that much. Help us to be people of integrity. Help us to be people who speak the truth even when it hurts. Help us, God, to be the kind of people where those who know us best trust us the most. We want to live that way. And probably all of us can look back at times in our lives when we didn't do that very well at all. Maybe lying has just become a character trait. Help us, God, to address this in our lives. Help us to earn trust back if possible, because we want to be trustworthy before you. And we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.